Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you might be tuning in to the Esports Awards Origins podcast from. I'm your host, Trevor Quickshot Henry, and today I get to speak to somebody who ticks all of our boxes. On this podcast, we talk to content creators, pro players, people behind the scenes, people that make the esports and gaming industry's cogs turn. And today's creator, former pro, community builder extraordinaire, and also fellow veteran of the esports industry is FC and former FIFA pro player Michael LaBelle. Michael Bell, it is a pleasure to have the conversation. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. That is an incredible intro. You had all the wordplay that a man could have ever asked for. I promise I didn't write that for him. I don't know where you had to build out. But
you did not.
That's what comes to mind. It makes me feel, very, very, very nice inside. I've dabbled a little bit in everything.
You'll get to discover where the conversation will take us. But in case you're new to Origins, the point of this conversation is to find out where the history comes from, how our guest got involved in either gaming, esports, or the industry. And I'm very excited about this conversation because I have a very small number of people who I have the pleasure of speaking to that can tell me about the tournaments I watched as a kid. Mike, just very quickly, and for everyone watching, I grew up in South Africa. I watched a lot of tournaments because I didn't get to compete at international events. So things like the World Cyber Games, the Electronic Sports World Cup, the World Series of video games, CPL, CGS. There's a lot of events that happened in the early 2000s that a lot of our peers don't know about. The reason I'm giving this story at the beginning is you competed at them. So that's wild. How do you feel when you think back to those tournaments and how the industry's grown up?
I mean, I'm happy that everything's progressed. I wish that guys that are becoming pro players now, maybe across all of esports, because you see so much different complaining and people talking about things on social media, had a little bit better, maybe overall sense from a macro perspective, what things used to be like. I remember winning tournaments and losing money, which is insane if you think about that, because you had to travel there, you had to get a hotel, accommodations. A lot of tournaments were more satellite based as well. And when I say that, maybe it's a better reference towards even poker, but you would have to win something regional before you go to the national. You would have to win something at the national level before you would maybe get a spot or a placement for the international event. But some of those didn't really have prizing. The prize was whatever package partnership agreement they had. So maybe let's say they had a deal with Sony, you might get a new PlayStation or some different Sony products, and you get to go to the next event, or you'd get to qualify for that next event. You might get booked to play at that event and not have to pay the flight or the accommodation, but there wasn't a financial incentive yet. Things weren't nearly as calendar-based or organized compared to now.
Yeah.
We didn't have competitive calendars, especially with FIFA and FC. I think sports gaming in particular as well was sort of, can you get the rights? Who's agreeing to what? Are the developers going to be involved? I could go on and on.
It's a completely different world, a completely different industry. And I really appreciate how eloquently you put that, Mike. A little bit more of history might be good. Now, listen, before we build up to some of these tournaments, let's cover a few quick things. How did you get involved in gaming? What's some of your earliest memories? And was it competitive from the start?
Well, it was not competitive from the start. I don't know if anyone's story would begin with competitive. I don't think anybody picks up a game and they are in the top, whatever, 10%, 1%, whatever the percentage would be. You need to really work at it. Even some of the 15, 16, 17-year-olds that are coming out of nowhere, it feels that way. A lot of them started playing at 12, 13. It wasn't even an overnight success, and they might have been a little more gifted than some of the others. But for me, my first, I'd say, gaming memory would be, probably those early doors with Pokemon. And I had one of those fat Game Boys. You guys will never see these either. You couldn't put it in your pocket. You had to have a separate holder. I don't know if you could pop up an image or something, but the thickness of the old school Game Boy, it was almost uncomfortable. It was heavy, and it was big, and it really didn't work. It reminded me of the first, do you remember the first Xbox controller?
Absolutely,
the first Xbox controller,
yes.
Chunky.
It was chunky.
It was a problem. If you weren't, 6'7", post NBA player, it was problematic as a controller. And that's why they came out with new controllers at that point. But maybe some of the Game Boy years. And I was also thinking, we always had consoles. My first consoles were always many years behind. Just my family didn't have the finances to get up to date with things. So I remember getting a Nintendo when everybody was kind of playing the N64, but I had the original Nintendo, and I was having a great time with Duck Hunt and Mario and just all the classics. And I still go back and play a lot of those just off nostalgic, but those are kind of my first real I guess, experiences with gaming, but none of those games were competitive. They weren't even meant to be. I don't think there was a way to compete in them, or I didn't know it. I guess it might have been speed running, maybe would have been.
Definitely not back then. Definitely not back then. I mean, look, in the mid 90s to late 90s, some of the PC game titles started to have fighting tournaments. Some of the fighting games kind of had, but the proliferation of the internet wasn't there yet. Now, I'm sure you have answered this question a whole lot, but for the records, you're an American playing FIFA or FC. Like, how does football or soccer become a part of your life? And quite literally, as I'm looking at all my notes, take over your life.
I mean, I think for a lot, specifically with sports games, is usually the creator or the pro player or the casual play the sport. So I always played soccer as a kid. I ended up playing college a little bit as well, which is cool. It's I was kind of a sports gamer in many ways. Like I played the real popular titles. So those titles that you just could not play, it would have been weird. If somebody told me if you grew up in these eras and you never played Halo, I'd be like, why? What happened?
Yeah.
How'd you miss Halo? It didn't matter what you were into. It was Halo. Same like a Grand Theft Auto. You could talk about Call of Duties. Just games that were like, if you never touched Counter-Strike, I would be like, what? You've never tried it? You've never experienced it at all, or a League of Legends? And I was always playing the sports titles and then whatever the mainstay that everybody played. So I'm picking up the new Madden. I'm picking up the new NBA Live or NBA 2K. I'm picking up, of course, FIFA every year. And I even learned how to play hockey, or maybe not how to play it, but in real life. But I learned the rules and everything around hockey via the game with NHL. I even have this in your notes, but I competed a little bit in NHL and in Madden as well. But anyways, I was just a typical get the game every year, new game, new players, updated stats. Let's see where that takes us. But I didn't even have online play in most of those years, at least the early ones.
Okay, so you've picked up all the sports games. Obviously, there is an element of competitiveness, and online gaming isn't there yet. So paint a picture for me timeline-wise. You've said you're about a generation behind for most of the early consoles. You're playing all these sports games, but by the early 2000s, I can see you competing and attending and winning tournaments. Fill in that blank for me.
Yeah, so when I got to high school is when I'm starting to get consoles, I guess, at the proper times. We've now stepped it up. I'm also able to work my first jobs so I can contribute to spending time playing video games. And I guess the only way that you knew or thought you were good is you would play kids in the neighborhood, which is not a good reference point at all, considering the competition levels that you're going to see at tournaments. But I was always thinking to myself, I'm better than the guys that live close by. I'm better than people at the school. Is there a way to play online? And in 2004-ish, 2005, around there was when I not only had the console, but I had this long Ethernet cord, which my parents must have disliked strongly because I ran it through the house. Because you got to remember, you can't play on Wi-Fi. This is not set up how they are now, where people have legitimate offices and spaces, and everything is just escalated. We didn't have that. So I think I had like a 50 or 100 footer going up from our downstairs into
That's amazing.
An open office, a space, or a family room. I didn't have an office, right? And my bedroom wasn't big enough. So it was kind of in the middle of the home. If I had a video, it was a funny watch back. But my family had to strongly dislike it because I'm telling them that I'm good now. So the 2005, 2006, I'm telling them I'm really good at this, but I didn't really have anything to prove that yet. Right. But I'm telling you, I'm crushing online. I can see the leaderboards. I'm looking for tournaments. I'm saying, is there a way for me to go compete? And that's kind of where I came into finding out about the FIFA Interactive World Cup, which has been rebranded since. But that was the earliest stage of at least we have one competition or a major competition, best FIFA players in the world. Here we go. I got something.
This I love. Now, just before we spend a little bit of time discussing your incredible competitive history, let's touch on two more topics about your teenage years. First of all, convincing your parents and family after you've like trashed their walking space with your cable. Trash is a strong word. Since you've got a tripping hazard.
No, that's fair. It's fair. Trash.
Okay.
Trash is fair.
How did your parents respond? And secondly, how do you get involved in FIFA esports as opposed to any of the other sports games?
Right. So I kind of started with Madden, but I was more of a soccer guy than maybe an NFL guy, especially with playing the sport. I tried playing, like, I was going to say American football just because I'm so used to saying football or anything on camera. But I was so used to playing When I've tried to play American football, I was like, nah, I don't think this is working for me. As soon as I got to high school, everybody got way bigger and they were way more into lifting weights than I was. And I was already showing promise even before that in basketball and soccer. So that's kind of where I was spending a lot of my time anyways. And then I started putting more time into those games, or especially into FIFA. I also think FIFA was ahead in some ways. I just think they've done a really good job with making this combination or having enough balance, especially the old games where it was arcadey, but it had realism and there was simulation, and it was a fun experience throughout a longer period of like maybe the game cycle. And it was a world game too. I'm watching the sport. I'm watching soccer games in Europe all the time. So it wasn't like this big shift for me in terms of my consumption levels. I just started putting more time into FIFA in particular.
This is amazing. And for anybody who is watching this, who has been around, who understands some of the things, I'm just going to list off some of the events that Mike LaBelle has taken part in. Please bear in mind, this is not exhaustive, right? Electronic Sports World Cup, World Cyber Games, VG World Finals, IESF, World Series of Video Games, Hyundai Global Championships, WCG, ESL Majors, as well as CGS. I can go on. I won't. Tell me about this, your hunger and your drive and the success you find leading to more success.
Well, I also think in some ways, for me, part of the drive was not just the competition, but it was a way I got to see the world a little bit. You got to remember, I didn't have access to anything. In fact, when I qualified, I was going to say we, but myself, and my dad went. But when I qualified for the FIFA Interactive World Cup, I didn't have a passport. So now, not only did it become real for my parents, I had confirmation that I was good at this. Because like otherwise, it's just me telling them at the dinner table and staying up way too late at night, being like, I know that I'm playing the real sports all the time, and you guys are thinking about college. It's not that I'm not thinking about college, but I'm telling you, I got some gifts. I think I could do this. Let me find something. So I won something, and then my dad got to come with me, and I competed in Amsterdam. But that was the first real, okay, he's pretty good at this. And then every year after that, you're like trying to build on it. You're saying, I knew that I was good. I've done this once. Can I keep repeating form? Am I able to take this to tournaments? Am I able to level up? And at the same time, be able to not only see the other competitors, because it's not like a small community, but it's not what it is now, where you could have a bunch of subscribers or people watching on Twitch. None of those things existed to this degree. So you didn't have, I guess, a fan base. So the fans were almost the other competitors in some way. Those are the other guys that were nerding out as much as you to try to find little advantages, like micro, I wasn't gonna say micromanages, but micromanaging, but micro shifts in the game that would give you a competitive advantage. And it was funny too. Back in the day, you could probably relate to this as well. You would save your best stuff for the tournaments. So now everything's seen online. But like if I had something or a couple of things, I'm not giving you that online or in a game. I'm not. Why would I do that? Like if I knew how to score in a way that I didn't think other people knew how to score yet, or like different ways to function some of the skill moves, I'm not sending that until we get into
this is something that not enough people appreciate the younger years, but like saving your best strats, saving things for the best of series, saving stuff for LAN. The amount of times as a teenager, I heard people save that for the LAN, save that for the LAN. Don't use that in the qualifiers. Like we can get through groups without that strat, man. Like it's real.
It matters. It matters. It makes a big difference when you get to the win or go home. It's like, cool, you're not going to be able to adapt in time, especially in FIFA where you're often playing one game.
Now I want to
pull it out at the tournament. You got it for the whole tournament. Nobody's going to be able to adjust.
Mike, give me a timeline as far as you remember it, okay? How many years do you consider your competitive gaming career to be?
So I won my first event 2006. And then I probably carried on all the way into like 2020, maybe around there. Close to that, 2019, 2020. Yeah, 2020, I think, around there.
Now,
so very super long.
A long
career,
time.
Extremely
that
long
is a
career,
long time. And also that also puts you on the older side of the professional players and competitive players. Let's call it a 15-year competitive career, 2005 to 2020. What are your top 3 favorite memories?
I mean, one would be the first time I won an event. Because that just, especially a LAN event. I went to Los Angeles, and this is also going to show you how things were just different. The qualifiers, like national qualifiers, a lot of them were open entry. Well, first 128 players, doesn't matter where you live, where you're from. If you can get to that qualifier, you would have a chance. And we played outside, standing up. Standing up is also crazy because you don't realize this, but you're kind of like flexing a lot of times while you're standing up and you're standing next to your competitor. Also, the game was different. So think about now, everything's organized. You got a studio set up. You have your own space. No, these people brought out their boys, fans. There's people behind you. There's people that could touch you. Even the guy next to you, you could yell at him. He could yell at you. It's a very different environment. And maybe this is a little more in line with sports in general. But in any other esport, this would never really be a thing. I mean, people yell at stages, and you've probably seen some of the old MLG videos. But that memory is there for sure. And then from there, it's interesting. I've had a couple really cool trips going to Asia. Maybe not as cool from the competitive side. We used to play this title. Have you ever heard of FIFA Online?
Of course, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was like a modded version of
Yes.
FIFA that they created. So we kind of got flown out as novelties because like we're not going to beat the best Korean.
No.
Even though Korea is not
At
known
their
for
game.
being at FIFA, but it's a created game. It's not that no one practices or plays or competes in this game. So they would fly out some of the best talent in North, South, and in Europe. But I just felt like none of us, and it showed. I remember the first year I went there, it was Korea versus Korea in the finals in Korea. And I'm sitting here watching this game saying, these are the best two players in the world at this game, but we never had a chance. But I don't know, it sticks with me so much that maybe it has to be there just because it's there. I always think of the Maldives trip too, which was what a trip, but what a awful like setup for the tournament.
Can I stop you there really quickly as
Yeah.
well, by the way? This is something that happened quite a lot in the early 2000s, maybe early 2010s as well. Like you would have tournament organizers in weird or wonderful places setting up tournaments. Like I remember seeing Counter-Strike tournaments like in the Middle East out in sun with like no sunshades and like sun bearing down on screens. You're like, people can't see what they're aiming at. Please do tell us the Maldives situation, but it was something that was quite commonplace in and around that time frame.
I'm not sure. I mean, a lot of our FIFA tournaments early days always were kind of raw. Like there would be other people there. Everybody had access to you. It could be outside, probably not inside. Actually, it could be inside. A lot of times they wanted to set up a stage, but they would have us playing almost at like I don't know, like a meeting grounds within the city sometimes. So that you would have a ton of people there, but it just was so different compared to what you're getting now, where guys get upset if they can't hear something properly in their headphones, right? Or if there's too much movement, or the camera guy that's taking pictures or video is too close, which I totally understand. I don't like now sometimes if somebody gets too close to you with a camera, or you're like in my space, even if it's a peripheral, I'm so dialed on the screen that I'd rather not. But back in the day, it was kind of anything goes, a wild, wild west, if you will. The Maldives, I legitimately think the organizers just wanted to go to the Maldives because it just made no sense. It didn't make any sense because it was the World Series of video games. We had these big grand qualifiers, and I think it was like the top 8 players from around the world went, right? And I had one of those spots. Maybe it was top 12. I don't remember. But I remember we get there. I'm not kidding. I've never had a tournament like this. We get there, and they had a meeting with us, and we got to negotiate the prize breakdown. So obviously the best players, or the guys that thought they were winning, they're like, well, I want the prize to go to the top end. And then the guys that were not likely to win, we're like, let's get a better spread across whatever the 8 or 12 or 16. But I've never been to a tournament where we're at the event and we're negotiating how this prize pool could be broken up. I don't think anybody got paid from that event either. So it was a wild one, but at least we got to go to the Maldives. It was like my worst travel story as well, because I didn't realize. It was unreal. Like they flew me to like 4 different stops before we got there. I think I flew more than 24 hours.
It's hard. Yes, of course. It's hard to get to. I went to the Maldives for my honeymoon, so I'm quite aware. But listen. Okay.
Super sidebar.
I could spend hours just talking to you about these tournaments, and I'm actually going to get your contact details. Maybe we can do a deep dive. But let's do this because the podcast is about origins. We've got a little bit of a taste of where your pro play comes from, right? Like you get into gaming, you're always playing these sports things, you figure out you're good, and this leads you on a 15-year journey competing and traveling the world. It sets you up to where you're sitting right now with that Rebel hat on. But before you got there, in those 15 years, when and at how old did you start thinking about what the next steps were going to look like? Because 2020 was only 6 years ago. It's not that long.
No, Correct. I guess in some ways, I mean, even if we track all the way back, because there wasn't any money in this. We should be very clear and transparent. This was I don't know if it's even a glorified hobby. It was a hobby. We were passionate about it. But I don't even think people thought it was cool. I thought it was cool. Like the other guys that were competing probably thought it was cool, but I don't know if anybody else did. And it was super grindy. So I guess in my headspace, I always thought if I really enjoy this, other people also, I think, will enjoy this. I know there's got to be an audience. There's a lot of people playing the game. So there's a lot of people playing the game. There's just not social media blowing up, and we didn't have a way to connect the communities. So I always felt, hey, if you're really passionate about this, other people are really passionate about this, there has to be a way to monetize this. But I didn't know when or if or how. But I knew I always felt like there would be a path if you just stuck to it.
And of course, if you do have this path, let's get nitty gritty. I can see the content creator background. Where do you actually start generating your revenue? Where do you start setting up your business endeavors, your content creator, your brand for the next steps or the steps that are in parallel with playing?
I mean, like many people, I think I was kind of forced into that hand. So I was finishing up university, and even during university, remember, I'm playing sports. I'm traveling to tournaments. I'm training for tournaments. I'm kind of doing school. Like I'm there. The grades are doing fine, but it's not my first priority at all. But I'm sitting here at 20 years old saying, if you want to actually stay in gaming or you want to keep competing, if this is something that you're really passionate about doing, you're going to need to build out more to your brand. More value to your brand so people know. Because at one point, I remember I was writing a lot of articles. I was definitely interactive on any forum that was talking about FIFA, especially at the competitive levels. And that's kind of where YouTube came up for me. I had a friend of mine, super OG YouTuber. We played on the same soccer team. You might know him, you might not. You remember Kev Jumba?
I know the name, but not super familiar. Just in doing some research for this.
Yeah, it's all good. He was not into gaming, but we played on the same soccer team, and he was the biggest YouTuber in the world for a couple years. And this is like when we're in high school. It was wild. He just didn't end up continuing with YouTube long term. But I at least had seen that where I knew somebody that had success, what I viewed as success, or what we viewed as success. So I thought to myself, look, if you're going to keep playing this game, you've got to figure out a way to have consistent monetization, because otherwise I'm just waiting for tournaments. I hope they announce stuff. I hope there's something for us to play this year or for me to work towards. So that was kind of the backstory of maybe the YouTube channel. I didn't know how to do anything either. I had no idea how to edit a video or graphic design. I've always had a bit of a speech impediment too, which is ironic now because I kind of speak for a living, but I had to work through that. My first YouTube content was terrible. I think most people probably say their content, if you ever try to make content, it's not very good in the beginning, but I used to have to link together, no face cam, stuttering through takes. Like let's say we did an 8-minute video, I would have 30-second takes, right? Where I'm struggling through them, but I'd link them together. And then I'd have an 8-minute video of all these takes where we had no face cam and just gameplay. So that was my early YouTube early YouTube journey.
It's incredibly inspiring to hear you say that, because timeline wise, when you start this around your 20s, right, you still have another decade of competing, right? Like, I'm just summarizing here, but that's late 2000s, early 2010s. You start building this up. It's obviously incredibly tough and hard, and also risky or like scary, because if this doesn't succeed, then you don't get to keep doing what you love. So where did your motivation come from?
I mean, it's a passion. And I was like, I like what I've been able to do thus far. And I still had the same feeling of there must be a way to make this into some sort of career. That's kind of, I always felt that way. And we should also mention at this point, other esports had divulged into real careers. So even though FIFA wasn't there yet, or I don't think any sports games were actually, but you have seen real Counter-Strike pros. I mean, I guess this would really be dating it, but like if you remember Quake or Unreal Tournament, they kind of had a nice wave of what was happening. We had seen some Call of Duty development, like serious Call of Duty development on that end. We had already gone through like a Gears of War period, which was super fun. But you got to witness some of this. Even League was starting to kick off. It wasn't huge yet, but it was it was going. It was going in the right direction. We had already seen Warcraft and StarCraft and Dota. Like there were other esport tournaments that were huge, like really big money. Guys are playing for 6-7 figure prize pools. So you're seeing it. So it's not like it's not there. We just don't know what's happening with sports games. And again, developer and I guess in FIFA, they're not working together to build out a huge esport program. Yeah. We don't have a calendar. We don't have programming. I don't think anyone did, but there was at least some writing on the wall that esports, competitive gaming, there's a place for it. And gaming in general, I think is getting a little more popular now, like a little more mainstream. Not like super mainstream, but a little more mainstream where people know what content creators sort of are. There's not really a big development on the other socials, right? Like there's not a huge following on people on Twitter or Instagram, but people know what YouTube is. Of course, you'll remember, but it used to be Justin TV, and then switching over to Twitch. I don't remember
before
when
that as
switch
well
happened.
There was also another one in between that not too many people owned 3D.tv.
Yeah, I remember owned. Yeah,
I'll mention this as well. Is I really love that you do mention these other genres because I actually got to interview Fatality, who was the world's best Quake 3 player back in the day. He's on our playlist. I got to speak to Snipedown, who was one of the greatest Halo players of all time. These are people that have gone through a very similar journey to you. However, they competed in games that had a significantly larger esports scene. They had more awareness around tournaments. So at what point in this journey, and let's say we're probably between 2010 and 2020, do you realize that it's happening? Like the tournaments are getting bigger, the viewership's getting bigger. Hell, my YouTube's getting bigger. When was that turning point for you?
2015, 16 area. EA didn't get directly involved until FIFA 2017. But I think there were conversations happening prior to that, like even behind the scenes, because that's how I sort of was able to get in with EMLS and of course Red Bull and different sponsors. So it just started building a lot bigger. And this also coincides. Soccer is also getting a lot bigger at the same period. Because you got to remember, it is kind of important when we're talking about FIFA and soccer, that's 1-to-1, so 1-to-1. But in North America or in the US, it's growing tremendously over these years. If I remember in high school, like I grew up in Houston, I would see pro soccer players, Houston Dynamo players, they'd have a second job. I'd see them sometimes during the week at their other job, right? So that's where MLS is at. You're a pro soccer player, but I think the league minimums were only like 30 grand. So a lot of these guys were backdooring on a second career at the same time that they were playing on the weekends in like a sold out arena. So, we're all growing kind of in the same period, but that's really when it kicked off in terms of more brands, more sponsors, now a competitive calendar, direct involvement with developers, which is hugely important if you want to see an esport grow. It's something that I'd always say in a very positive light for Riot. I think they've done a great job building community. I've done a lot of interviews around like League of Legends in terms of, because I watch League. I'm not a very good player. You have to be so dedicated to be great at League. But I'd say even average fan knows so much about League. It's unbelievable. And I'm talking about like from the esports side to the general game basics to the story arc around, backstories of different heroes
and factions and things.
But it just, the average guy will know everything to at least to a certain level. And I'm always really surprised or impressed by that.
But do you not think it is fair to say even your average FC or old FIFA player knows almost everything about the teams or the players football-wise? Right? Like
they know the football, but they might not know, like they might not even know that there's a big pro scene happening, especially back in the day. Things are changing now, but I'm saying that might not be in their priority list. It's like I get FIFA every year. I watch the sport all year. I'm going to pick up the new FC title, and that's just on my rotation. It's part of my habit. That's what I'm going to do. Not for me, but the average, fan.
I get what you mean. Just before we move on to actually kind of discussing that, like the industry of it, as well as some reflection, let me ask you this, because I really like how you painted the story about how soccer is growing in North America and EMLS is getting huge. I mean, when Ibrahimovic and Zlatan were getting involved, I think it was Zlatan took out like full page adverts and was like, hey, I'm here in LA. Like that made it to my feed. I don't even watch football, right? But that was how big of a deal it was. So you're there, you're ahead of the curve. You've been doing this for ages, and now you're seeing your peers go around. How do you feel when you reflect on not only your decisions, where they led you, but being one of the Americans to compete and represent your country for over a decade?
Yeah. I think where I was most proud is that I stuck with it, because people from like the era that we're talking about, they don't exist anymore often in the esports scene, definitely not as a competitor or even a content creator. A lot of the guys that definitely had the potential to do these things, they just, I don't want to say they aged out, but they stopped that dream. Right. And I was, I don't know, maybe stubborn to a T, where I said, look, I don't know if I'm going to be better than better at anything else. This might be like what I got. This is likely the best thing that I got in terms of being really good. Think about it. When you're going to a tournament or you're winning a national final or national finals, in this case, you're the best at something in the US. That's I was like, I don't know what else am I going to be the best at. And then even traveling internationally, and like I've had a decent amount of top 8s and top 3s. Never was able to win the whole big shebang really at one of the big internationals. But either way, being the top 3 best players in the world for a year, or top 8 best players for the world in a year, what an achievement! I just felt like there's got to be a lane here, and it's gonna be funny. What I had in my mind. So I told you I knew a famous YouTuber, but we weren't making that type of content. I always had gone to YouTube to get help. And I think a lot of people can relate to this. So like I remember going to YouTube and I'd look up how not to ruin my clothes doing laundry. I didn't even know there were like another section, or like how to tie a tie, you know? And I felt like the videos were really boring, but it got me from point A to point B, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, man, I could bring that type of information to FIFA, but I could do it in an entertaining way. I could bring entertainment with information. That was like where my headspace was at. And that's where I was like, let's try to do that. At least that was the very initial, I guess inspo was really around boring YouTube videos.
This might be a sidetrack, because is this where Dirty Mike comes from? Is Dirty Mike?
Oh, not in the laundry. That's funny. No. Okay. No.
Okay.
Hold on. I get where you're going. That makes sense. So in college, we used to go out. There was this movie called The Other Guys, and it was like Dirty Mike and the Boys. And everybody has, I don't know, 3 or 4 friends named Michael or Mike, whatever. So when we used to go out after ironically playing FIFA, in these guys' apartments or whatever, we'd be like, "Oh, Dirty Mike and the Boys is going out." Okay. And it was kind of fun. It was kind of crazy too, because I went to Texas A&M, and like at that point, that's where that all started. I went to a few schools, but when I was there, and some of the guys that we used to play with ended up being like real serious athletes. Like I used to play ball against, don't
shortchange
Chris
yourself.
Middleton. Huh?
Don't shortchange yourself. You are
but it's like
you know what I mean? Like
it was wild though that these guys like Chris Middleton's still in the league, still in the NBA, or Manziel was a redshirt freshman when I was there as like a senior, and we used to play ball against each other. Chris used to play FIFA with us, and I mean I even think of like Mike Evans. Mike Evans was played basketball with us as well. And it was funny. A lot of this all came full circle, but everyone always played FIFA. Maybe that's where we should go here.
I love this.
Even now,
I love this.
When I meet people, everybody plays the game. Everybody plays the game. So, sorry, I took you sidebar.
No, you're good. Listen, this is exactly what we're trying to do. I want to talk a little bit to Michael about the type of questions that maybe you don't get asked too often, hopefully. But I've got an image starting to form in my head, right? You're dedicated, you're stubborn, you want to prove something, you keep competing, you are clearly good. Just haven't found that final little tick, to like win an international tournament, but fine. The motivation, the drive's still there. Content creating is going fine. You've got a unique spin. You're doing this educational content. It's fine. 2019, the New York Red Bulls happens. You're sitting there in all your Red Bull garb. This has to be a massive step up from previous accomplishments. Is it?
Yeah.
And what did it mean for you?
Big. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, like being able to sign partnerships and sponsors and have brands that believe in you the same way that you believe in them. It gives a lot of credibility. But it also, it's like some of the first time in your life that you feel like you actually have some stability. Because you got to remember, when you're a content creator, especially early doors, I never know what it's going to look like. Like, I don't know how much money I'm going to make or not make. A lot of it, I didn't care. I got offered jobs out of college, even in the gaming industry, and some really good offers too. And I was like, nah, I'm good. I like what I'm doing. I like playing video games. I'm still able to do this. I'm learning how to edit videos now. I'm learning about like some graphic design. I'm getting better at performing on camera and talking. Remember, I told you I wasn't good with speaking at all. So I was like, the amount of practice that I put into this, it's like I'm improving. I feel like I'm improving as an individual at doing things that I want to do. I'm still playing sports with my boys. I'm like, we got a good thing going here. And I never had the headspace being like money was everything, or I'm really driven towards, I guess, building some big business. So for me, it wasn't that difficult to turn down other opportunities with salaries and benefits, and to be like, I like this, I own it, it's my thing. We're going here. I'm live streaming. I'm uploading. I'm traveling to tournaments still. I was like, this is sick. But of course, once you have brands like Red Bull and then the New York Red Bulls, and you're like playing for an actual MLS organization, it's kind of insane. So it was a real big moment. I don't know if I like using the word legitimize, but it kind of does, right? Especially with the masses. I mean, I remember when that signing happened, we're on ESPN talking about it. We're doing media appearances where you're in the newspapers, and and not even just local newspapers. It was going out big, and especially the announcement around having a competitive league in gaming that was in the US that also matched up with all the clubs in the league as well on that end. I don't know. It was a big moment.
It's huge.
I'm very
And
proud.
again,
Yeah, I'm very proud to have been able to last
be.
through. Because even at that period, I'm also an old man for competitive gaming. You
relatively.
know this. The guys
relatively.
are young.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I am. Like if you're in your, like after 25, you're kind of old in competitive gaming across the board.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what game.
I'll say this as well. The word legitimize is huge because same. Until my parents got to see my work, I commentated League of Legends in some amazing arenas. Like I was in Wembley Arena, I was in Madison Square Garden, Staples in the US. When that happened, my parents finally went, okay, you're the shit. Like I get it now. I understand. But I had been doing that work for years. It took a while before I had those accomplishments. Try to find in your head, were your parents more proud of New York Rebels or seeing your face in the Houston Chronicle or seeing you on the trophy stand at an earlier tournament? Which one kind of shone brighter for the family?
I'd like to think that being able to support yourself via like what you wanted to do was probably the biggest moment for them. I mean, I never had an allowance or a kickback or anything. My parents couldn't have given me that, but being able to, you don't live at home, you're done with university studies, you have your own apartment, you're operating a legitimate business, and you're doing what you've always been really good at. And like, I remember the early stages where my parents were having a lot of trouble believing that there's something in gaming, and I just kind of kept trucking on. But I will give them credit. My folks weren't not supportive. Yeah, I mean, they were, especially after winning an initial tournament, they at least had something to hang on to. I just don't think anybody realized where it was going or where it could go, other than maybe people that are really into esports or gaming. It was a specific niche group. It was a niche group.
It was. And also, I think you need to look at other titles, because I also know this. You would have been a unicorn even amongst FIFA players to be aware of all these other titles, to look at the scenes, because I've met my fair share of FC players recently and FIFA players back in the day. There's a lot of blinkers vision. Let's change gears. Okay. We've roughly skimmed over all the details to get us to Mike LaBelle, that is a New York Red Bulls representative, that is, I assume, doing very well and happy for himself. But I want to talk about the game. How much has this game evolved from when you started playing back in the early 2000s, to now it being rebranded, to the mental toll of a different game every year?
I mean, I guess the game's always changed. I should also have mentioned too, this was me leaving Houston and moving to New York with that signing. So, I mean, that's massive. Now I'm working at a different SKU and a different scale. I didn't even put that in there in terms of, it's so different. Like, you might get a call from MLS. Well, MLS's headquarters is here. I've done some work with NBA. NBA's headquarters is here. All the agencies that handle a lot of these big contracts with all these different massive brands, they're here. So that was new. You know, you could go and make an appearance. Like, if you're going to go do something, I don't know, you're going to go do something in Barstool, their offices are here. Or you're going to make, like, I remember I went on I got to go on the stock market and do the exchange.
That
and
is
be
amazing.
There for LaBelle. But I'm just saying, like, this is like New York, just everything is so elevated. And I don't want to, like, that was such a moment for me, being like, I'm taking my chance, you know, and I didn't get like some sort of relocation fee. There wasn't something like that cooked into it. So I did this out of choice. I was like, this makes sense. I think this makes sense. I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to bet on me here again. I want to make sure that, like, these brands that have believed in me, that I believe in them, and I really want to kind of cater that relationship. Sorry, it was a different answer to where you were going. No, it's
amazing.
But
this is amazing.
I just thought about, like, as such a huge moment of me in kind of adulthood, right? This is like the first time you're no longer, even though I was always living alone, I suppose, after school for the most part. But,
I'll be honest.
It's a big step. It's a big step.
This was part of the answer for the previous question. The whole point of this conversation,
I was still thinking about
to know you exactly, and I really enjoy speaking to people like us who are somewhat pioneers in the industry. I don't really like using them, but I think it's fair. I'm nearly 40. I've been involved in esports for the better part of 25 years. I've been a professional in esports for the better part of 15 years. So by comparison, been around a long time. So hearing and sharing that, especially for younger viewers who may be watching, for parents who may be watching, I think it is very powerful. So I'm going to say thank you because it is a phenomenal answer. And I will just reiterate this. You've achieved this success after 15 plus years of playing a similar but not the same game, of grinding through
now I'm ready to go there. I'm ready to go there. Yeah.
Grinding through an industry in a space where, hell, nothing existed for a long time but love. So what's that mental toll like for you?
I mean, I guess there's two different parts of this. Like the first initial question was kind of like going from game to game, right? How the game changes. I wouldn't say there was any relief either, because if anything, there's more pressure, to be honest with you. You're not just moving to a new city, but now you have a bunch of different people that are kind of counting on you. And then when you go to tournaments, there's obviously eyes, like how are you carrying yourself? How are you performing? How are you interacting? Like there's a few different pressures there. You don't want to have a bad result, but at least you had a bad result previously. It was like your bad result. You know, it wasn't you representing another team or organization or other people that were involved in it. It was just you had to go home and maybe head down here. You're not feeling good about it. So that was a big shift. That was a really big shift. And then the game, I'd like to believe if you're really skilled or you're at like a pro or competitive level, that's going to carry game to game, at least to a certain level. And then it's a matter of new meta, learning how the game configures, but you already have foundational intangibles. And I guess I could talk in more depth on that. I don't know if this is the right podcast for it, but there's so many like micromanaging type of techniques with sports games. And I'll say sports games in particular, because unlike, let's call it traditional esports, where you or one of your teammates, every action is controlled by you. In a sports game, because let's look at FIFA, right? Or FC, there's 11 players. So there's going to be moments there where you need to get certain animations out of the AI. And so how you're pressuring, how you're switching between players, it all dictates it, where that's in your headspace as well as how is this player going to be positioned if I quickly switch these players, move this guy here, put pressure there, sit back this way. And then you have on the sidebar commands of an offside trap or sitting a little bit deeper, or you're adjusting your formation on the fly. You get where I'm going. There's a lot you can deal with.
Yeah. I mean, I really, really, really love the explanation that you just gave about getting certain animations from the AI, because in other titles like Call of Duty, there are certain ways that in like hardpoint maps, you can position your team to force the server rules to spawn your opponents in a certain way. Like if you position to the left of what the next flag is going to be, to the right of it, like you have to, I'm going to use this word, manipulate the engine. So try explain to the viewers, how much better is Anders Verjgaard or Abu Makar or Yilmaz today in comparison to how good you were, let's say 2010, in comparison to how good people were in the early 2000s?
It's tough because it's a different era. There's so many more tournaments. And I mean, if you talk to those guys, they say nobody was touching me. I will say, I think someone even like Anders is just a talent you just don't see. Like, I don't care what years you wanted to grab from. I mean, I don't know if you know his backstory, but before he was even old enough to compete, nobody was touching him online. I mean, the guy was just unbeatable. I mean, undefeated. I mean,
he's a monster.
Talking like 1,000 plus games undefeated. Yeah. So he's just kind of on his own path, his own place. I'm not going to be an unk mode here, or super unk, whatever, and say, well, it's hard to compare because it is such a different era. I even think about sports, right? Because they have the same comparison that comes up all the time with the modern game when it comes to soccer. Because I also consume a lot of basketball. Basketball's even like maybe brought up more. Like players from the 90s, would they be able to compete with the guys now? And it's really easy to say the guys now are better. Really easy, super easy. But I would like to think that some of the better players from these different eras would be able to adapt and improve their game that would also match the same level. So there's more players playing than ever before. I think the talent pool is bigger than probably ever before, and there's more money and opportunity than ever before. So this fresh era, I would like to, I don't have a problem getting on record and saying that they should be better, but I don't know for sure, because I'm not getting to see, like, Alfonso Ramos was playing for just a few tournaments, right? He wasn't playing. He didn't have a big build out. I'm just looking at some of the guys through history, or a Bruce Granick, the Machine, who has a full documentary. It impacted the entire French scene for the future of FIFA. Like Mount Rushmore him up. It's hard for me to believe 18-year-old Bruce Granick's not going to fit in right now if you could insert him in and do his thing and be able to really like chest out be up there competing for tournaments. I think the sheer reality is there's more competitors than ever, which means there's going to be more bounces that maybe don't go your way, but there's more tournaments to be won and more tournaments to be lost.
Also, to be fair, I think it is crucial to acknowledge with a larger player pool, you do theoretically have a higher potential ceiling, right? When you do have more competitors, you have theoretically stronger competitors. We see this a whole lot. It's just an exciting time to be watching. I've only personally started learning about FC about 3 years ago, just before the rebrand, basically. I'm very new to the scene, so I don't have any of the history. But what I really appreciate is the insight that you've shared with me and talking back. Let's change gears once more as we are now nearing sort of the end of our plan time. I want to look ahead. And I want to ask Mr. LaBelle, what is next for you? You have found a way to find success in everything that you've done thus far, but where does the future take you?
All right. I mean, I guess in the super near future, we have the World Cup knocking. It's around the corner from us in the US. So I'm super excited about that. I've got the FC channel, obviously, that we've kind of chatted about, where I'm still providing, I'd say, information with entertainment, less with the tutorials and tips, more with a lot of ranking based content, which I think just fits into more what people are consuming presently compared to back in the day where there were a lot more maybe gameplay deep dives. Maybe there's also just a lot more competition. Like in our space, there are so many creators, especially considering that we have so many different countries, right? That are not only playing and competing, but just creating. So you're kind of competing versus a huge group, and a lot of people speak English. So there's a lot of content, man. So you've got to be kind of pumping with bandwidth. And then I've got a football channel or a soccer channel that does more like mini documentaries. So I'm really looking at kind of having a strong 2026 with that channel to go with. I started an NFL channel actually towards like almost halfway through this last season, and that's kind of blown up too. It's done amazingly well on especially with short form with like TikTok and
I'm not surprised.
Instagram. So yeah. So I'm really happy with kind of what we're building out. I got a couple more things in the works. I'm not worth, I guess, trying to plug here. They're not there yet, but I think that's kind of the content. I guess the content space. You kind of go with kind of what you know.
Do you know what I love so much? Do you know what I love so much? Less than 40 minutes ago, you were just telling me that you barely could speak longer than 30 seconds to make 20 odd clips to make an 8-minute video. Had to learn how to do YouTube, had to learn how to do graphics, had to teach yourself to this, had to move out and live by yourself for the first time. And now you're just sitting here throwing, here's these 20 other work projects that I'm just working on. Like when you reflect and you sit down and you actually think about this in a condensed way, how proud are you of the last 20 years?
I mean, I'm happy to be here. Like I'm saying, like so many people, I guess maybe because I've seen a lot of years, just, the consistency is kind of the name of the game. It's pretty difficult to be consistent, like very difficult, because there's going to be grindy time periods. There's going to be times where you don't know what's happening next. There's going to be a roller coaster. Also, your personal life is going to have ups and downs. But as anybody who's been big on socials or you're working hard on social, you're consuming, people still want content, so you've kind of got to be able to balance everything as best as you can. And I had to learn those skills. I did not have the skill set of delegation and finding editors and videographers. And I've done a lot of hosting and presenting work. So I'm just happy to see, I guess, elevation. You're changing. I want to be dynamic. And I think that's what made me so pumped. Maybe when I started the YouTube channel originally, it wasn't because it was getting a lot of views or I was getting a lot of traction. In fact, it was the opposite. But I was into the fact that I was now learning something new. Because remember, I was competing as a pro, but I was not a content creator. I was not an on-camera guy. That was not the case. And I'm stuttering through these videos, but I'm getting better at talking. And now I'm working through things that I've always struggled with mispronouncing. And I still have problems sometimes. I'm able to, adjust on the fly or whatnot. But I was really happy, even for the first couple of years of the YouTube, to see a little bit of growth, but more so that I didn't know how to work a camera properly. I didn't know how to edit a video. I didn't know how to do graphic design. I didn't know how to talk in front of a camera. I wasn't even comfortable being looking at a camera like this. So I was learning a lot, and I felt like I was improving. Like I was improving as a person. I was growing as a person. And maybe that's the big takeaway. And that even going to New York, like I said, it's such a huge moment. Because for me, this is the pinnacle city. When I look at the most impactful cities you have in the US, I'm like New York City. I was never an LA guy. I'm not a West Coast person. I was like, if I was going to go somewhere, let's go to New York and let's see what that looks like. And everybody always said, if you get a chance to live here, if you ever get a chance to visit, if you get a chance to do it. And my family's from New York originally too. So I'd been before, but I hadn't I never had this opportunity. And I was like, this makes sense. Let's do it. Let's dive for it. And that's been the last, I guess, 8 years now in New York City.
Unbelievable. It's incredible to hear. Let's go one last question looking forward. Okay. Where are you in 2036, 10 years from today?
That's a hard one. I'm not sure. I mean, this space is so quick moving. I'd love to tell you I'm sitting on an island and we're big chilling. I don't know. I don't know what it looks like.
Dude, you couldn't sit still. Don't lie. Listen. I call bullshit. I don't think you could sit
that's
still.
not me. That's not me. I'm not a guy to go on vacation with either. Like, I'm not going to be chill. I'm not going to be chill. But I'm just saying, I don't know what's happening in 10 years. I don't know if we're still making FC content 10 years from now. Maybe we will be. Maybe we won't be. I mean, at the end of the day, I've always done things out of passion. And that probably one of my biggest recommendations. If you're at this point of the video and you're thinking about anything along esports content, you have to start from a point that you really enjoy this, or you're really passionate about the subject or the video game, whatever it might be, because it's going to be, I'm telling you, it's going to be so many hours you're not going to get paid for. And that's got to be okay with you. You got to do it because you're just like, I'm in it. I'm doing research that you could not believe. You could not believe.
My last question, especially around this kind of like timeline thing, I tend to say, how do you want to be remembered? Based on the answer you just gave me, maybe being one of the most passionate FIFA and gamers and content creators around is things. How would you want to be remembered outside of just that?
I'd like to be remembered as like one of the boys and a good guy. And I think I've always been able to keep that in this period. I mean, you've probably seen this. Creators, and especially getting clout and gaining a little bit of fame, and obviously having some financial benefits that go with it. People change and shift, and it's not always a good shift. Yeah. And I've always taken pride in doing good business. If we ever did a contract together and I was the one paying you, you're going to get paid regardless of how that project went. Like, it's going to happen. I've always been very pay it forward. So these are things that I take pride in, right? So if you ask me and I know someone that I think would fit well for whatever you're working on, or vice versa, whatever, let's connect some people. Right. Let's make some things happen. You never know when any of that will come back to you, but that's not part of the deal. It doesn't matter. So I hope that when it's all said and done, you're like, he was a good guy. I really enjoyed his content. I think people will come off with the passion line too. Like, I don't know if I'm yelling and screaming at you, but I'm definitely, speaking with a little extra oomph, a little extra.
You're speaking from the heart. Emphasis. You're speaking from the heart. I'll reiterate this as well on the pay it forward side, especially to any of the younger competitors, players, professionals. You never know where somebody will end up, what work they're going to do. So why do anything but be nice, right? Be professional, be courteous, and it does come back. Karma is a thing. Listen, Mike, I feel like I could talk to you for hours. It's fantastic. We've barely scratched the surface on so many topics, but you have such a rich history that I have to cram. The very last thing that I always do, now that we've covered your childhood, we've covered your professional career, we've touched gaming career, we've touched content creator, we've talked about the New York Rebels, we've contemplated the future. I'm going to ask you just some very quick fire questions, right? I'm going to shoot them at you with a level of intensity. You can either give me a one-word answer, one sentence, one paragraph. I will adapt to you. And we're going to start with a super easy one. What is your favorite ever version of FIFA or EAFC?
I'm going to go with FIFA 15.
What is the hardest opponent you've ever faced?
I mean, I would probably put like someone like August Rosemeyer, Aggie, if you ever saw him online, because I was there for his prime. And I mean, this is a world champion player. I've also played against Vergang. You don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with that. No one wants. That's not a one-word answer, but
that's perfect. Hey, be good for you. One word, one sentence, one paragraph. What is your most painful loss?
Oh man. These are the things I try to forget, brother. What? All right. I had the finals of a FIFA Interactive World Cup where it was a national final and I lost in penalty kicks. And that sat with me for probably a couple years at least afterwards. You're right there. Remember, this is all or nothing in those. So second place really doesn't get you anything. Like, no notoriety, no big paycheck, nothing. Nothing. Like, there's nothing coming with it. People don't even know really, like, at these times, like, nothing's happening.
What is a memorable, when it doesn't have to be favorite, what is a memorable match or tournament win that comes to mind right now?
It's got to be the first one when I went to LA, 128 people. Like, there were other guys that were at the pro level in that tournament, and just winning that, having a couple of my boys flew out with me. I mean, we're also a kid, like 16, 17 years old, man, and it was just like, wow, this is real. Like, that's the first time that you could say, like, I am confirmed to be great. or really great, or I think I'm now we have it. We didn't have it before that.
Golfers will always remember a hole in one. Can you remember one of your favorite goals?
Whoa. Oh man. It's probably going to date there's been a couple with like couple double body feints. So maybe we'll just leave that there. There's a couple like skill runs that I'd like to say were replayed a few times over and over, not just from me, but from the folks.
What is your favorite MLS team?
I'm representing Toronto FC, but I mean, obviously, I spent a lot of time with the New York Red Bulls as well. But I'm an Everton supporter. If you're going to go to Europe, so there's a lot.
I'm going to just. Who is your favorite football player?
Oh my goodness, all time. Wow. I'm gonna go with Zinedine Zidane in the midfield, man. Graceful,
good choice.
Easy on the
good
eyes.
Choice.
Yeah.
I think I still remember Zidane headbutting somebody at a World Cup in 2010 in South Africa. I was in South Africa at the time. Okay. Favorite football club?
Oh, you're there. Everton. There you go.
Who will win the 2026 Football World Cup?
I think it would silly to go against Vergang in anything.
Oh,
we're talking on the gaming side? Or are you talking about the World Cup?
Let's do both.
Sorry,
okay, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Listen, I'll do this way because this is a great clip for the Esports Awards. Who will win the EAFC 2026 World Cup?
It's hard to go against Vergang. He's always going to be the first on the docket to do the business.
And then who's going to win the less important actual FIFA World Cup in the US?
Super biased, but I'd love to see Ronaldo get one with Portugal. So,
well, there we go. Portugal.
Send it along.
Mike, I'm going to say thank you so much for taking the time. Again, thank you for skipping over all the topics. It was an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to seeing what content you're going to make around the World Cup.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, to everybody who is watching, thank you so much for tuning in. I have been your host, A Quick Shot. He was Mike LaBelle. We've got a bunch more interviews with a bunch more creators, pros, business people. Just click the link. And until next time, I've been your host, Quick Shot.